A little beggar shouts at a millionaire in his hotel, "Don't get in the elevator!" Then, looking around more carefully, the millionaire became desperate. The sun had not yet risen when Sophia, an 8-year-old girl, woke up startled in her hideout on the top floor of the luxurious Imperial Star Hotel. Her big brown eyes were wide open, and her heart raced as the images from her dream still danced in her mind. Wearing her only set of clothes, a faded pair of jeans and a yellow t-shirt that had seen better days, she rushed out of her makeshift refuge behind old maintenance boxes. The digital clock in the lobby read 6:47 a.m. as she hurried down the service stairs. Sophia knew every inch of that hotel, every corridor, every back door. It had been 372 days of living there, hidden, surviving on leftover food and the occasional kindness of some maids who pretended not to see her. That morning, however, something was different. The dream had been so real, so vivid. She saw the elevator, number 3, the one that led to the penthouse. She saw the cables, the mechanism, and something was wrong, very wrong. And she saw him, the man in the impeccable navy blue suit who would be there in exactly 13 minutes. Sophia ran to the main lobby, ignoring the disapproving looks from the staff who were already used to her presence, but still saw her as a stain on the impeccable image of the 5-star hotel. She positioned herself near the elevators and waited, her small body trembling with anxiety. At exactly 7 a.m., Edward Montgomery, CEO of the Montgomery Group and one of the most influential businessmen in the country, walked through the revolving doors of the hotel. Tall, with graying hair at his temples and piercing green eyes, he walked with the confidence of someone who not only owned the hotel, but half of the city's luxury ventures. Sophia watched him approach elevator 3, accompanied by his personal assistant, Amanda Thompson, an elegant woman in a beige pantsuit with her black hair pulled back into a severe bun. When Edward reached out to press the button, Sophia shouted, "No! Please don't get in that elevator." The shout echoed through the lobby, causing several guests to turn around. Edward stopped, his hand inches from the button, and looked at the disheveled girl running toward him. Amanda immediately stepped between them, her expression a mask of disapproval. "Mr. Montgomery, don't worry. I'll call security to remove this," Amanda began, but Sophia interrupted her. "The cables! There's something wrong with the cables. I saw it in my dream." "Please believe me," Edward Montgomery observed the girl with curiosity. There was something in her eyes, a genuine urgency that made him hesitate. In his 30-year career, he had learned to trust his instincts, and something about this child caught his attention. "Amanda, call maintenance, ask for a full check of elevator 3. "But sir, this girl is just a—" "Now, Amanda." As Amanda made the call, Edward crouched down to Sophia's level. "What's your name, little one?" "Sophia," she replied, her eyes still fixed on the elevator. "I live here. I've been hiding here for 372 days, since—" Her voice faltered, and she swallowed hard. Amanda's response was interrupted by frantic voices coming from the communicator radio. The maintenance team had found something, an irregularity in the cables of elevator 3, something that hadn't been there during the previous day's inspection. Edward looked at Sophia with an expression that mixed astonishment and gratitude. The girl simply nodded, as if confirming something she already knew. It was at that moment he noticed the deep bags under her eyes, the weariness on her small face, and most of all, the familiar emerald green color of her eyes, a color he hadn't seen in years, not since his younger brother had left. "Sophia, would you like to have breakfast with me? I think we need to talk." The girl hesitated for a moment, glancing at Amanda, who was still on the phone, her expression now a mix of concern and something else. Fear? But then her stomach growled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten anything since dinner the night before. Leftovers from a room service a kind maid had left for her. "Yes, Mr. Montgomery, I'd like that very much." The hotel restaurant was practically empty at that time of the morning. Edward led Sophia to a discreet table in the corner, near a large window that offered a panoramic view of the city. Amanda followed them, keeping a respectful distance, but her eyes never left the girl for a second. Sophia sat down timidly, her small, dirty hands contrasting with the impeccable white linen tablecloth. A waitress approached, hesitating when she saw the disheveled girl, but a look from Edward was enough for her to maintain her professional demeanor. "Bring a bit of everything from the children's buffet, please, and for me, the usual." As they waited, Edward watched Sophia carefully. There was something familiar about her, something beyond the green eyes that intrigued him so much. The way she sat, how she tilted her head slightly to the side when she was deep in thought, gestures he recognized from somewhere, from someone. Sophia, you said you've been living here for 372 days. Can you tell me how you ended up here? The girl played with the napkin, folding and unfolding its corners. It was after the fire. Mom and Dad? She stopped, took a deep breath. I had nowhere to go. I tried staying at the shelter, but they didn't understand me there. They said I was strange, that I made up stories, but I don't make things up. I see things in my dreams, things that are going to happen. Edward felt his heart tighten. He remembered his mother, Mrs. Celeste, and the stories she used to tell about her special dreams. Back then he thought they were just tales to entertain the children, but his younger brother, Richard, always believed. And your dreams, do they always come true? Almost always. Sometimes they're confusing, like puzzles. But today's was very clear. I saw the elevator. I saw the cables snapping. I saw... She shuddered, leaving the sentence unfinished. The food arrived, and Sophia's eyes widened at the amount of dishes. There were pancakes, fresh fruit, various types of bread, juices, and even a steaming hot chocolate. She looked at Edward, as if asking for permission, and when he nodded, she began to eat with a mix of hunger and politeness that broke his heart. Amanda approached the table, her heels making a rhythmic sound on the marble floor. Mr. Montgomery, the maintenance team has finished the inspection. They found clear signs of sabotage in the elevator cables. Edward noticed that Sophia stopped eating for a moment, her eyes fixed on Amanda. There was something in the girl's gaze, a mix of fear and recognition. Amanda, please cancel my appointments for this morning and call our head of security for a meeting in my suite in 1 hour. But sir, the meeting with the investors, it can be rescheduled. This is more important. As Amanda walked away, Edward turned his attention to Sophia. You said your parents... He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. What were their names? Sophia took a sip of hot chocolate before answering. Richard and Mary Helen Montgomery. The world seemed to stop for a moment. Edward felt as if all the air had been sucked from his lungs. Richard, his younger brother with whom he had lost contact years ago after a fight over the direction of the family business. Richard, who always talked about using the family fortune to help others, who dreamed of creating support centers for special needs children. You're my niece? Sophia nodded slowly. Dad used to talk about you sometimes. He said you were stubborn but had a good heart. He kept a photo of you in his desk drawer, along with a proposal for a project called Wings of Hope. Edward felt tears forming in his eyes. The Wings of Hope project. Richard's dream that he had rejected years ago, deeming it unrealistic and lacking commercial potential. Now sitting there with his niece whom he didn't even know existed, a girl with the same gift her mother had, Edward began to question every decision he had made in his life. Across the restaurant, Amanda watched the scene with a tense expression, her fingers rapidly typing a message on her phone. We have a problem. The girl is with him. She knows. Amanda Thompson hurried down the hallway on the 15th floor of the hotel, her heels echoing against the marble floor. Entering her room, she closed the door and dialed a number she knew by heart. Marcus, we have a serious problem. The girl who's been hiding in the hotel, she's Edward's niece. Richard's daughter. On the other end of the line, Marcus Anderson, the main competitor of the Montgomery Group, cursed under his breath. This complicates everything. The plan was perfect. In 2 weeks, during the shareholders' meeting, Edward would be forced to sell his shares for a pittance after they discovered the supposed fraud we planted. And now this girl shows up. She has the same gift as her grandmother. She saved Edward today, predicted an elevator accident. The same accident that cost a small fortune to set up. Marcus's voice was heavy with irony. We need to act fast. If Edward finds out about our involvement... In the hotel restaurant, Edward and Sophia were still talking. The girl was now more relaxed, her cheeks flushed from the hot chocolate, and her first proper meal in a long time. Uncle Edward, she said, still testing how the word sounded, there's something I need to tell you about Amanda. Edward leaned forward, intrigued. What would it be, darling? In my dreams, I always see her talking to a man. They talk about papers, about making you look bad, and... Sophia hesitated, playing with the napkin. She was in my dream about the elevator too. Not inside it, but smiling when something bad happened. Edward felt a shiver run down his spine. Amanda had been his assistant for 5 years, practically his right hand. But in recent months, small inconsistencies had started to appear. Important documents mysteriously disappearing, confidential information leaking to the competition. Sophia, do you remember anything else about this man from your dreams? He wears a large gold ring with a green stone, and he has a small scar near his right eye. Sophia closed her eyes, concentrating. Oh, and he calls her our star informant. Edward felt his blood run cold. Marcus Anderson, his biggest competitor, always wore an emerald ring, a family heirloom, and he had a scar on the right side of his face, the result of a car accident years ago. Sophia, I think we need to be very careful in the coming days. Do you trust me? The girl nodded without hesitation. I trust you. You have the same eyes as Dad when he's worried about something important. Edward smiled, feeling a mix of pride and sadness. I'll take care of you now, I promise. But first, we need to figure out exactly what's going on in my company. At that moment, Robert, the hotel's head of security, appeared in the restaurant. He was a tall, burly man with graying hair and a sharp gaze that missed no detail. Mr. Montgomery, we've completed the preliminary analysis of the elevator. You need to see this. Edward stood up, but Sophia grabbed his hand. Don't trust all the security guards, she whispered. There's one who always receives envelopes from Amanda. His name is Sergio. Robert raised his eyebrows, surprised. Sergio is my assistant. How do you know? She knows a lot of things, Robert, and from now on she's under my protection. I want 2 men you absolutely trust watching over her 24 hours a day. As they headed up to Edward's suite, Sophia held his hand tightly. On the way, they passed Amanda, who pretended to be busy with her tablet, but her eyes followed the girl with a mix of concern and anger. In the suite, Robert presented the evidence. Photos of the elevator cables clearly tampered with, an unauthorized electronic device installed in the control panel, and, more disturbingly, a series of encrypted emails found on Sergio's computer. Sir, Robert said quietly, this wasn't just simple sabotage. It was a professional attempt to cause an accident. Someone really wanted you to be in that elevator this morning. That night, Edward took Sophia to his penthouse on the top floor of the hotel. The apartment was enormous, decorated with elegant furniture and artwork, yet it maintained a cozy atmosphere that surprised the girl. This was the guest room, Edward said, opening a door that revealed a spacious area with a view of the city. But now it will be your room. Tomorrow we can go buy new clothes and anything else you need. Sophia timidly stepped into the room, her eyes wide at the sight of the king-size bed and silk curtains. On an antique dresser, a photo caught her attention. 2 smiling boys, one of them holding a soccer ball. That's you and Dad, she said, not as a question. Edward picked up the picture frame, a nostalgic smile on his face. Yes, this photo was taken at our grandmother's house, your great-grandmother Celeste. She was the one who started it all. The gift of dreams? Sophia asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Exactly. Grandma Celeste had the same gift as you. She saved many people throughout her life, always discreetly, always with humility. Edward sat down beside his niece. Richard, your father, didn't have the gift, but he believed in it. He always believed in things that I, with my practical businessman's mind, considered impossible. Sophia pulled something from her pants pocket, a piece of paper folded and refolded several times. Like this? Edward carefully took the paper. It was a hand-drawn sketch, clearly Richard's work. A modern building with rooftop gardens and the name Wings of Hope written in stylized letters. Daddy said he drew this after seeing me for the first time in a premonitory dream. He said there are other children like me with special gifts, and they need a safe place to grow and learn. Edward felt tears welling up in his eyes. The last time I saw your father, we argued about this. He wanted to use part of the company's capital to build this center. I told him it was madness, that our investors would never approve. I was so stubborn, so blind. A distant thunder rumbled, and Sophia shivered. Edward noticed it was starting to rain. A summer storm was approaching. Uncle Edward, Sophia said suddenly, her voice serious, I just had another dream. It was quick, like a flash. I saw Amanda taking papers from your office, important papers with your signature. Edward frowned. My signature? Sophia, are you sure? Yes, and there was a red stamp on them, something about stock transfer. At that moment, Edward's phone rang. It was Robert, the head of security. "Mr. Montgomery, we just caught Sergio trying to access your office. He had an electronic key copying device, and we found something interesting on his phone, text messages to a number registered under Marcus Anderson's name." Edward looked at Sophia, who was now playing with the edge of the bedspread. "Robert, I want you to do something. Go to my office and check if there are any stock transfer documents there. And one more thing. Starting tomorrow, I want a full sweep of all the company's computers, beginning with Amanda Thompson's." After hanging up, Edward noticed that Sophia had fallen asleep, curled up on the quilt. Carefully, he covered her with a blanket. It was then that he noticed something falling from her pants pocket, an old crumpled photo with water stains. In it, Richard and Mary Helen were smiling, holding a 3-year-old Sophia in their arms. In the background, the same Wings of Hope drawing could be seen hanging on the wall. "I promise, Richard," Edward whispered to the photo, "I will fulfill your dream, and I will protect your daughter with my life." In the hotel office, Amanda was typing furiously on her computer, deleting files and clearing traces. Her phone rang. It was Marcus again. "We need to speed up the plan," he said without preamble. "The shareholders' meeting has to be moved up. Edward can't have time to investigate anything." Amanda glanced nervously at the door. "And the girl? She's just a child. No one believes in dreams these days. Besides, soon Edward will have much bigger problems to worry about than the stories of a little girl." The day dawned with a different brightness in the penthouse of the Imperial Star Hotel. Sophia woke up in her new bed, still getting used to the comfort of the soft sheets. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, but the aroma of fresh coffee and pancakes filling the room confirmed it was all real. In the dining room, Edward was already up, serving breakfast while talking on the phone. He was wearing a flawless grey suit, but his expression revealed he hadn't slept much. "Good morning, little one," he smiled as he saw Sophia timidly approach the table. "Did you sleep well?" Sophia nodded, her eyes scanning the variety of fruits, breads, and juices on the table. "I had some dreams, but they were different from the others. I saw a lady with white hair, very beautiful, singing an old song." Edward nearly dropped his coffee cup. "What was the song like?" Sophia began to hum softly. "On the wings of the wind, thoughts take flight, carrying my secrets to the heavens." "That was Grandma Celeste's favorite song," Edward whispered, moved. "She used to sing it to us every night before bed. Sophia, this wasn't just an ordinary dream. I believe Grandma is trying to tell us something." At that moment, Robert hurried into the room, carrying a thick folder. "Mr. Montgomery, we found something in the hotel's security footage. You need to see this." The images showed Amanda entering Edward's office at 3 in the morning, using a key she shouldn't have had. In the recordings, she was photographing documents with her phone and placing other papers into a folder. "This was 2 weeks ago," Robert explained, "exactly 1 day before those important contracts went missing." Sophia, who was watching the footage over her uncle's shoulder, frowned. "There's something wrong with the date." "What do you mean?" Edward asked. "In my dreams, I saw Amanda doing this on different nights. It wasn't just once." Sophia closed her eyes, focusing. "And there was always a brown envelope she kept behind the painting at the 15th floor reception desk." Robert immediately sent 2 security guards to check. Within minutes, he received confirmation. They found 3 envelopes hidden exactly where Sophia had indicated. Inside them were copies of confidential documents and a flash drive. "Sophia," Edward knelt in front of his niece, "can you see anything else about these documents?" The girl hesitated. "There are numbers, lots of numbers, and a name that appears several times, the Phoenix Project." Edward paled. The Phoenix Project was a secret investment by the Montgomery Group in sustainable technology, something that could revolutionize the market. Only 5 people knew of its existence. "Robert, I want an emergency board meeting in 1 hour. And one more thing. Find out everything you can about Amanda's recent communications with Marcus Anderson." As Robert left, Edward noticed that Sophia was unusually quiet, playing with her toast without eating. "What is it, sweetheart? Did you have another dream?" "Not exactly," she replied softly. "It's just, today marks exactly 1 year since Mom and Dad—" Her voice trailed off. Edward felt his heart tighten. He pulled Sophia into a tight hug, feeling her tears dampen his shirt. "You know," he said softly, Your father had a favorite saying, "Dreams are the wings that take us beyond the horizon." He believed that every person had a special gift, something unique to share with the world. Your gift, Sophia, is not a curse, it's a blessing, just like Grandma Celeste's was. Sophia wiped her tears. Dad also said you were the smarter one of the two. You just needed to learn to listen to your heart. Edward smiled, remembering the countless arguments with his brother. Richard had always been the dreamer, the visionary. Now, through Sophia, his dreams were beginning to make sense. "I'll tell you a secret," Edward said, standing up to grab something from his briefcase. "I spent the whole night reviewing your father's plans for the Wings of Hope, and you know what? He was right. Completely right." He unrolled an updated architectural blueprint on the table. It was Richard's original design, but with modifications and updates. In the center of the paper, the name shone in golden letters, Wings of Hope Institute, in memory of Richard and Mary Helen Montgomery. The Montgomery Group's meeting room was buzzing with tension that morning. Edward had summoned only his most trusted senior directors, people he had known for decades. Sophia was in her new suite, guarded by two of Robert's best security personnel. "Gentlemen," Edward began, his voice steady, "in the last 24 hours, we've uncovered evidence of a conspiracy to take control of our company." The projections on the screen showed documents, encrypted emails, and records of suspicious bank transfers. Charles Mendes, the finance director of 30 years, was the first to speak up. "That explains the inconsistencies I've been noticing over the past few months. Small discrepancies that on their own seemed like administrative errors, but together they form a pattern," Edward added. "A pattern that leads directly to Marcus Anderson and his attempt at a hostile takeover." On the rooftop, Sophia was playing with Mel, a golden retriever Edward had adopted to keep his niece company. Suddenly, the girl felt that familiar sensation, a dream arriving in broad daylight. She saw Amanda in an elegant restaurant, handing a folder to Marcus Anderson. Inside the folder were documents bearing Edward's signature, signatures she now knew were forged. But there was something more, something about an extraordinary shareholders' meeting. In the boardroom, Edward continued his presentation when his phone vibrated. It was a message from Sophia. "Secret meeting tonight. Amanda and Marcus. Portofino restaurant." Edward couldn't help but smile. His niece was truly extraordinary. He discreetly signaled to Robert, who immediately began organizing surveillance of the restaurant. "There's one more thing I need to share with you," Edward said, turning to his directors. He picked up the plans for the Wings of Hope Institute and spread them across the table. "This will be our next big project." Charles Mendes adjusted his glasses, examining the blueprints. "Edward, this is different from anything we've ever done." "Exactly. For years we've focused solely on profits and expansion. My brother Richard tried to show me that we could do more, be more. Now I understand what he meant." The meeting continued for hours, with plans and strategies being laid out. When it finally ended, Edward went upstairs to see Sophia. He found her asleep on the couch, Mel lying protectively at her feet. Robert was waiting for him with news. "Sir, we intercepted an attempted breach of our system. Someone tried to remotely access the Phoenix project files. We traced the IP. It came from Amanda's personal computer." "Excellent," Edward smiled. "Now we have concrete evidence. Prepare the team for tonight. I want records of everything discussed at that restaurant." Sophia woke up startled. "Uncle Edward, I had another dream. I saw papers. Lots of papers being burned in Amanda's office. She's going to try to destroy the evidence." Without wasting a second, Edward alerted security. Within minutes, they caught Amanda in her office, a small makeshift fire consuming documents in a metal trash bin. "Amanda Thompson," Edward said from the doorway, his voice heavy with disappointment. "You're fired, and I suggest you cooperate with our investigation, or the consequences will be much more serious." Amanda lifted her chin, defiant. "You have no proof of anything." "No?" Edward smiled. "How about we start with the encrypted emails, or the bank transfer records, or maybe the attempt to cause an elevator accident?" The color drained from Amanda's face. In her office, Edward had found not only partially burned documents, but also a notebook with detailed notes about the takeover plan. It was the final proof they needed. That evening, when Marcus Anderson arrived at the Portofino restaurant, he found not Amanda, but Edward Montgomery sitting at the reserved table. "Good evening, Marcus. I think we have a lot to discuss." The Portofino restaurant was elegantly lit that night, its windows offering a privileged view of the city. Marcus Anderson adjusted his emerald ring, visibly uncomfortable as he sat across from Edward Montgomery. "I wasn't expecting to see you here," Marcus said, trying to maintain his composure. "I imagine not," Edward replied calmly, placing a brown folder on the table. "You were expecting Amanda Thompson with the final documents needed for your takeover attempt, weren't you?" Marcus narrowed his eyes, the scar near his right eye seeming more prominent under the ambient light. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No?" Edward opened the folder, revealing copies of emails, bank records, and Amanda's notebook. "How about we start with the elevator sabotage? Or would you prefer to discuss the forgeries of my signature?" In Edward's apartment, Sophia watched the city through the living room window, Mel lying at her feet. Suddenly, the girl felt that familiar sensation, another dream coming. She saw Marcus in his office hours earlier, storing documents in a safe behind a painting. Documents that would prove not only the current conspiracy, but years of illegal practices. She grabbed her new phone, a gift from Edward, and quickly typed a message to Robert. "Safe in his office, sailboat painting, combination 382455. Back at the restaurant, Marcus began to sweat. "You can't prove anything. It's your word against mine, and I have far more influence in the market than you can imagine." "Is that so?" Edward smiled, showing his phone. On the screen was a message from Robert. "Safe found. Documents recovered. Everything recorded with witnesses." The color drained from Marcus's face. How did you—" "Let's just say I have a very special guardian angel," Edward replied. "Now, let's discuss your terms of surrender." For 2 hours they negotiated. Marcus had no choice. The documents found in his safe would incriminate him not only for the attempted takeover of the Montgomery Group, but also for years of tax fraud and unfair competition. "You will sign an agreement committing to sell your shares on the stock market gradually, to avoid causing panic," Edward explained. "In return, we will keep your other indiscretions confidential. And if I refuse, then by 9 a.m. all these documents will be in the hands of the proper authorities." Marcus removed his emerald ring, nervously twisting it between his fingers. "You win, Edward. But I just want to know one thing. How did you find out about all this? How did you know about the elevator, the documents, even today's meeting?" Edward thought of Sophia, her special gift, the premonitions that had not only saved his life, but possibly the entire future of the Montgomery Group. "Let's just say I've learned to believe in things that go beyond our rational understanding," he replied. "My brother Richard tried to teach me that years ago, but I wasn't ready to listen. Sometimes we need to lose something precious to finally see the truth." When Edward returned to the penthouse, he found Sophia asleep on the sofa, a storybook open on her lap. Mel lifted her head, wagging her tail as she recognized him. She had 3 more dreams. Clara, the housekeeper Edward had hired to help with Sophia, informed him. She said she saw a man handing over important papers, people shaking hands in a meeting room, and Clara smiled. A big building with rooftop gardens full of happy children. Edward covered Sophia with a blanket, noticing the serene smile on her sleeping face. On the coffee table, the plans for the Wings of Hope Institute were open, with small, colorful drawings made by Sophia in the margins, butterflies, birds, and stars. "How your father would be so proud of you," he whispered, gently kissing his niece's forehead. "And thanks to you, his dream will finally come true." The morning sun lit up the Montgomery Group's boardroom, where Edward presented his new vision for the company to the shareholders. On the screen behind him, images of the Wings of Hope Institute project alternated with financial charts and projections. "Ladies and gentlemen," Edward began, his voice steady and passionate, "for years we've focused solely on numbers and profits. Today I propose something revolutionary, using a portion of our resources to make a difference in the lives of special children." In the front row, Sophia watched proudly, wearing a new blue dress and her brown hair neatly combed. By her side, Clara held a folder with the initial case studies of children with extraordinary gifts who had already been identified. "The Wings of Hope Institute will not just be a support center," Edward continued. "It will be a place where children with unique abilities can develop their gifts in a safe and nurturing environment." One of the oldest shareholders raised his hand. "What about the financial return on this investment?" Edward smiled. "Let me present some interesting figures. Over the past 2 weeks, thanks to insider information we received, he discreetly winked at Sophia, we avoided a hostile takeover attempt that would have cost the company billions. We also identified and fixed vulnerabilities in our systems that could have resulted in significant losses. The numbers on the screen spoke for themselves. The prevention of the elevator disaster, the uncovering of the conspiracy, the protection of the Phoenix Project, all combined represented savings greater than the investment needed to build and maintain the institute for 5 years. Moreover, Edward added, we already have confirmed partnerships with 3 universities for studies on extrasensory perception and the development of advanced cognitive abilities. The institute will not only be a support center, but also a hub for research and innovation. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, another dream gently arriving. She saw the institute complete, its glass walls reflecting the sun, hanging gardens on every floor. She saw children smiling, each developing their special gift. A girl who could sense the emotions of plants, helping to create a therapeutic garden. A boy who dreamed of mathematical formulas, solving complex problems in his mind. Uncle Edward, she whispered when he paused the presentation, it's going to work out. I've seen it. The meeting continued for another 2 hours. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The Wings of Hope Institute project was approved. Later, on the rooftop, Edward and Sophia celebrated with a special dinner. Clara had prepared all the girls' favorite dishes, and even Mel got a special bone to celebrate. You know, Sophia, Edward said, pouring grape juice into crystal glasses, your father always said I was too attached to the material world, that I needed to learn to see beyond appearances. Sophia smiled, playing with her glass. And have you learned now? Thanks to you, yes. You didn't just save my life that day in the elevator. You saved my soul, made me rediscover what's truly important. Edward paused, his eyes glistening. Your father would be so proud of you. He is, Sophia replied simply. In my dream last night, I saw him and Mom. They were smiling, holding hands in front of the institute, and Grandma Celeste was there too, singing that old song. Edward felt a pleasant shiver run down his spine. And what else did you see in your dream? I saw many children arriving at the institute, some scared, like I was when I was hiding in the hotel. But then I saw them smiling, learning to use their gifts to help others. Sophia paused, her green eyes shining. I saw a girl who can talk to animals helping at a pet shelter, a boy who dreams of unwritten songs giving concerts for the elderly in nursing homes. And you? Edward asked softly. How did you see yourself in the future? Sophia smiled, a smile that so much resembled her grandmother Celeste's. I found myself helping other children understand that being different is not bad, that our gifts are presents, not curses, just like you helped me understand. At that moment, Clara walked into the room carrying a chocolate cake decorated with sugar stars. On top, a chocolate plaque read, "Welcome to your new home, Sophia." The girl looked at the cake, at her uncle, at Mel sleeping peacefully by the sofa, and felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She had finally found her place in the world, and even better, she was helping other special children find theirs too. 3 years had passed since the approval of the Wings of Hope Institute project. The modern architecture building, with its glass walls and hanging gardens, was already a landmark in the city. On that spring morning, Sophia, now 11 years old, walked through the halls accompanied by a new student. You don't have to be afraid, Marina, Sophia said gently to the 8-year-old girl beside her. No one here will call you strange for being able to talk to plants. Marina looked in awe at the third-floor hanging garden, where several children were participating in an experimental botany class. An older boy was playing the violin, and the plants seemed to sway gently to the rhythm of the music. You have a special gift too, don't you? Marina asked timidly. Sophia smiled. Yes, I can see the future in dreams. That's how it all started, you know. I used to hide in a hotel afraid of my gift until one day I had a dream that changed everything. In the director's office, Edward was reviewing the first quarter reports with satisfaction. The institute had already welcomed over 200 children with special gifts, and the results were astounding. Lucas, the boy who saw mathematical equations in his dreams, had developed a new algorithm that was revolutionizing the way the company processed data. Clara, now the educational coordinator at the institute, entered the room carrying more reports. Mr. Montgomery, the results of the latest survey have arrived. The children's adaptation rate has reached 98%. Edward smiled, remembering how Sophia had been frightened during her first days. And how is the new class doing? Extraordinary. We have a girl who can sense the emotions of plants, a boy who predicts weather patterns, and a 5-year-old who can see people's auras. In the garden, Sophia was showing Marina the special plot where children with nature-related gifts could practice their abilities. A particularly beautiful rosebush had bloomed out of season. It was Julia who made this rose bloom, Sophia explained. She can accelerate plant growth with the touch of her hands. At first she was ashamed of her gift, but now she's helping develop sustainable cultivation techniques. Marina timidly approached an orchid. "She's sad," she whispered. "She needs more light." "See? Your gift is precious," Sophia smiled. "Thanks to you, we can better understand what plants need." At the end of the hallway, Edward watched the scene with pride. Sophia had grown into an extraordinary young woman, not just because of her gift of premonition, but because of her ability to help other children accept their own special abilities. Robert, still the head of security, discreetly approached. "Sir, I just received the final report on Marcus Anderson. He has fulfilled all the terms of the agreement and sold his remaining shares today." "Excellent," Edward replied, without taking his eyes off his niece, who was now showing Marina the experimental greenhouse. "You know, Robert, sometimes I think everything that happened was necessary. If it weren't for Marcus's conspiracy, I would never have discovered Sophia, never have understood the true potential of my brother's project." In the garden, other children approached Marina. Peter, who could see music in colors, began to play his violin, creating a symphony of pastel tones that danced in the air. Anna Louise, who could feel others' emotions, smiled as she sensed the growing joy of the new classmate. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, another dream gently arriving. She saw Marina a few months in the future, confident and happy, using her gift to create a revolutionary system of sustainable agriculture. She saw other children arriving at the institute, each with a unique and special gift, each finding their place in the world. "Uncle Edward," she called, waving for him to come closer. "I think Marina will love seeing the community garden we created on the rooftop." Edward joined the group, noticing how Marina's eyes sparkled with anticipation. "You know, Marina," he said gently, "when we built this place, we dreamed of creating a space where special children like you could be exactly who they are, where your gifts would be celebrated, not feared." Marina looked around, at the other children who smiled warmly, at the plants that seemed to whisper with joy in her presence. "It's like I've finally found my home," she said softly. Sophia took her new friend's hand. "Welcome to the family, Marina. Here we all have wings to fly." Evening fell gently over the wings of Hope Institute, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. In the main auditorium, dozens of families gathered for the first performance of the year. On stage, children of different ages prepared to show how their special gifts could create something extraordinary when they worked together. Sophia, wearing a sky blue dress, was backstage helping to organize the participants. Peter, now 13, tuned his violin, while small, colorful notes floated around him, visible only to him. Julia, 10 years old, adjusted the flowers she had grown especially to decorate the stage. "Everyone ready?" Sophia asked, her heart pounding with excitement. This wasn't just another performance, it was the realization of one of her most recent dreams. In the front row of the audience, Edward adjusted himself in his seat, Mel lying faithfully at his feet. Clara sat beside him, carrying a folder with the latest reports from the institute. 452 children helped in 3 years, Clara commented proudly, and each one of them with an incredible story to tell. The lights dimmed, and Sophia stepped onto the stage. Her voice, clear and confident, filled the auditorium. 3 years ago, I was a frightened girl, living in hiding, afraid of my own gift. Today I'm here to show all of you what happens when we accept who we are and use our gifts to do good. Peter began to play his violin, and the colorful notes only he could see started to dance in the air. Marina, now an expert in communicating with plants, made the flowers on stage move in harmony with the music. Anna Louise, sensing the emotions of the audience, projected an aura of serenity that enveloped the entire space. In the audience, emotional parents watched their children, once misunderstood and isolated, shine with confidence and joy. One mother silently cried as she saw her son, who could materialize small lights with his hands, create a dance of fireflies to the rhythm of Peter's music. Edward watched everything with teary eyes, remembering Richard and how his brother always believed this would be possible. Beside him, Clara smiled, proud of every small progress, of every smile earned. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, another dream emerging during the performance. She saw the Institute 5 years in the future, even larger, with branches in other cities. She saw children who were now watching the performance, discovering their own gifts and finding their place in the world. The show reached its peak when all the children combined their gifts in a final performance. Peter's music painted the air with vibrant colors. Marina's plants danced, creating astonishing shapes, while small lights floated like stars throughout the auditorium. As the last notes faded and the lights came back on, the audience erupted in applause. Edward stepped onto the stage, embracing Sophia with pride. "Your parents would be so proud," he whispered. Sophia smiled, wiping away a tear. "They are, Uncle. I see them in my dreams, you know, along with Grandma Celeste. They're always smiling." Later, after the performance, as the families chatted animatedly in the garden, Sophia found Marina sitting near one of the rose bushes that had been part of the show. "She's happy," Marina said, gently stroking a petal. "They all are. They say they've never felt so alive." Sophia sat down beside her friend. "Did you know it was here, right in this garden, that I had the dream about today's performance? I saw every detail, every smile, every magical moment." "And do your dreams always come true?" Marina asked curiously. "Not always exactly as I see them," Sophia replied thoughtfully. "Sometimes they're just clues, directions to follow. The future is like a garden, Marina. We can see the seeds, but it's up to us to water them and care for them so they can bloom." Edward watched the scene from afar, his heart overflowing with gratitude. The Institute had become so much more than a business project. It was a beacon of hope, a place where impossible dreams came true every day. Clara approached with a cup of tea. 3 more families asked about enrollment today. "Great," Edward smiled. "There's always room for more dreamers here." In the sky, the first stars began to appear, and a gentle breeze swayed the flowers in the garden. Sophia looked up, feeling that familiar peace that always accompanied her most special dreams. The future unfolded before her like a book full of wonderful possibilities, and she could hardly wait to help write it. The Imperial Star Hotel gleamed under the morning sun as Sophia, now 13, walked through the main lobby. Her steps led her to elevator number 3, where it had all begun 5 years ago. Dressed in an elegant outfit with her brown hair braided intricately, she no longer resembled the frightened girl who used to hide away. "It feels like yesterday," Edward commented, placing a hand on his niece's shoulder. He was grayer now, but his green eyes still held the same determined spark. "Sometimes I have to pinch myself to believe it's not a dream," Sophia replied, touching the pendant around her neck, a gift from Edward on her last birthday, bearing the symbol of the Wings of Hope Institute. Today was a special day. The 5th anniversary of the Institute would be celebrated with a charity event at the very hotel where it all began. The lobby was decorated with flowers grown by Marina and her students from the special botany class. Tiny dancing lights created by students gifted in energy manipulation floated through the air. Robert, still head of security but now also the Institute's protection coordinator, approached with a smile. "The guests are already arriving in the main hall." In the grand ballroom, hundreds of people gathered. Families whose lives had been transformed by the Institute, business leaders who had become project partners, researchers fascinated by the results achieved with the special children. Clara, organizing the final details of the event, paused to observe a group of children who would be introduced that evening. Among them was Louise, a 7-year-old girl who could see the history of objects she touched. "Sophia," Louise called excitedly, "touch this crystal. It has an amazing story." Sophia picked up the crystal that adorned one of the tables and immediately felt that familiar sensation, a dream arriving in broad daylight. She saw her grandmother, Celeste, young and radiant, wearing that same crystal as a pendant. She saw her father, Richard, as a child, mesmerized by the stone's glow. "This crystal belonged to Grandma Celeste," Sophia whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes!" Louise exclaimed. "And before her, it belonged to her great-grandmother, who also had special dreams." Edward, who was watching the scene, felt his heart tighten. He had ordered some family heirlooms to be brought for the event's decoration, but he never imagined that this particular crystal held so many memories. The hall continued to fill up. Peter, now a talented 15-year-old violinist, was preparing with his special orchestra, a group of young musicians who could see or feel music in unique ways. Marina, at 11 years old, led a team of children who had transformed the hall into an enchanted garden. Sophia closed her eyes, another dream gently emerging. She saw the institute expanding, with new branches in different cities. She saw special children from across the country finding their place, developing their gifts and transforming the world around them. "Uncle Edward," she called softly, "I think Mom and Dad would be very happy today." Edward hugged his niece, remembering his brother, their heated discussions about the future of the company, and how Richard always insisted that there was something greater than profits and numbers. "You know, Sophia," he said, looking at the hall filled with transformed lives, "your father always said that true wealth lies in the ability to make a difference in others' lives. It took me a while to understand that, but thanks to you I finally learned." On stage, Clara began organizing the children for the special performance they had prepared. It was a celebration not only of the Institute's 5 years, but of every small victory, every reclaimed smile, every special gift discovered and nurtured. Sophia smiled, feeling that familiar peace that always accompanied her most important dreams. The future unfolded before her like a book of infinite possibilities, and every page was filled with hope and magic. The celebration night at the Imperial Star Hotel was reaching its most special moment. On the stage of the banquet hall, Sophia prepared to deliver her speech. The audience, composed of over 500 people, waited in respectful silence. "5 years ago," she began, her voice clear and confident, "I was a frightened girl living in the shadows of this very hotel. My dreams, which I so deeply feared, seemed like a curse to me. Today, I understand they were actually a gift, not just for me, but for all of us." Edward, seated in the front row with Clara and Robert, felt his heart overflowing with pride. Beside him, Mel, now a respectable elderly dog, wagged her tail gently. "The Wings of Hope Institute is not just a place," Sophia continued. "It's a promise. The promise my father, Richard Montgomery, made to himself when he dreamed of a world where special children like me could shine. The promise my Uncle Edward made when he decided to transform not only his company, but his worldview." In the audience, Marina smiled as the plants decorating the hall seemed to sway gently, responding to her emotions. Peter, his violin resting on his lap, watched the colors of Sophia's words floating in the air, soft hues of blue and gold that only he could see. "In 5 years, over 500 children have found their place in our institute. 500 stories of fear turned into courage, loneliness turned into belonging, and special gifts turned into presents for the world." Sophia paused, closing her eyes for a moment. Another dream came, clearer and more vivid than ever. When she opened them again, her green eyes sparkled with tears of joy. "I just had a dream," she smiled. "I saw our institute 10 years from now. I saw our doors opening to children from every corner of the country. I saw our first students, now adults, returning to teach and inspire a new generation. I saw my father's dream multiplying, growing, flourishing, like Marina's roses in our experimental greenhouse." Edward stood up quietly, joining his niece on stage. In his hands he carried something covered in blue velvet. "When my brother Richard first introduced me to the idea of the Institute," he began, "I was blinded by my own ambition. I had to nearly lose everything to see what truly mattered. Sophia not only saved my life that day in the elevator, she saved my soul." Removing the velvet, Edward revealed a crystal plaque with the names of all the children who had passed through the Institute over the last 5 years. "This plaque will stand at the entrance of the Institute," Edward announced, "to remind everyone who enters that every special gift is a unique light in the world, and that together these lights can illuminate even the darkest night." Sophia gently touched the plaque and caught another glimpse of the future. She saw hundreds of new children finding their way. She saw the proud smiles of their parents and her grandmother Celeste. She saw the legacy of love and hope spreading like ripples on a calm lake. In the center, a photo of Richard and Mary Helen smiled at the audience. The presentation continued with a unique spectacle. Peter conducting his special orchestra, while Marina and her students made the flowers dance to the rhythm of the music. Louise narrated fascinating stories about the ancient artifacts displayed in the hall and small colored lights, created by students gifted with energy manipulation, danced in the air like shooting stars. At the end of the night, when the last guests had departed, Sophia remained in the now silent hall. Edward found her standing near the window, gazing at the city lights. "A penny for your thoughts?" he asked softly. "I was thinking about how much has changed," she replied, "and how some things remain exactly the same. Dad and Mom's love, Grandma Celeste's dreams, her generous heart that just needed a little nudge to open up." Edward hugged his niece, and together they watched the sunrise paint the sky in pink and gold. A new day was beginning, bringing with it endless possibilities, new dreams to dream and new wings to unfold. "You know, Uncle," Sophia whispered, "I think I finally understand what Dad always said. Dreams aren't just messages from the future. They're seeds of hope we plant today to harvest tomorrow." And so, under the light of dawn, the Wings of Hope Institute continued its mission, transforming special gifts into gifts for the world, fears into courage, and dreams into reality. Because, as Sophia had learned, true power isn't in seeing the future, but in having the courage to shape it with love, compassion, and hope.